these industries are building up so we don't change, right? So we don't change. There's all sorts of things coming up. Can anyone think of a big industry, big major industry so we don't change? Plastic surgery, very good. You're a winner too. All right. Plastic surgery, we spend billions of dollars a year on plastic. 5 million people a year get a chemical peel. They burn the wrinkles off their face, right? I mean, some of it's needed, but a lot of it's elective surgery. Because we don't want to grow old, right? We want to go back to our 30-year class reunion looking like we're still 18, right? Yeah, I went to my class reunion recently. I was on the committee. I was in charge of the invitations, so there weren't any cheerleaders there this year. That was a fun one. That was the 30-year. 10-year wasn't so much fun, right? Everybody's all married, you know. 30-year reunion. All the women got their maiden names back there ready to party. All right, some of y'all will get that later. All right. But we don't want to change. We don't want to grow old. All these different, I do all these programs at nice resorts, like hotels. They have nice resorts. They always have spas with them, and they're all doing all sorts of things so we don't change at the spas. You know, have you seen some of this stuff? They do at the spas, milk baths, seaweed wrap, all this sort of different stuff. We don't want to change. The latest plastic surgery, I'm not making this up, the latest plastic surgery, have you heard of this one? Rear end implants. Have you heard of this? Has anyone got them? If you're thinking of doing it, it's $5,000. Yeah, a box of Twinkies is $3. Might take you a little while, but it'll taste better, right? Because we don't want to change. We want to, because change causes fear and tension and silos to build up between departments and miscommunications. We don't want to change. Luckily, if you can use some humor when you're dealing with change, you can mitigate a lot of that and change a lot of that energy, because humor changes the energy. Humor changes the energy. So if you can use some humor when you're dealing with this tough change. Anyone watch The Dog Whisperer? The Dog Whisperer? I love The Dog Whisperer. I don't even have dogs. I've got cats. But they would never have a cat whisperer because, you know, every episode would be the same thing, right? And now this week, the cat whisperer is going to try to get the cat to stop scratching the furniture. And it would never work. All right, the dog, and I didn't watch The Dog Whisperer for a long time because I thought that it was a guy listening to a dog's barking and then translating it into English. I live in Los Angeles. I figured there's somebody out there doing that, right? No, The Dog Whisperer is really cool. Cesar Millan is a dog whisperer, and he takes on every kind of weird, crazy dog you can imagine. He's barking dogs and aggressive dogs and shy dogs and dogs that eat furniture and dogs that eat other family pets. And within minutes, he changes the dogs into these calm, normal dogs. It is absolutely amazing to watch. You've seen it. There's no editing involved. He does it just in minutes. And he doesn't do it the way we all grew up with, right? He doesn't do it by screaming at the dog or hitting it with paper or spraying it with water. He does it all with his calm, assertive energy. He's a very good example. He sort of shows you exactly what he preaches to his clients. You cannot control with tension. You can only control with energy. And the emotions you feel inside affect your energy outside, which in turn affects pretty much everything around you, right? Your emotions inside affect your energy outside, which in turn affects everything around you. Humor is the same way. If you can use some humor, you can change the energy around you. And it has so many great benefits, right? Makes you approachable, opens lines of communications if you can use humor. I get a lot of CEOs come up to me after the show, after the comedy, and say, thanks for having some fun with me. Now my staff knows they can talk to me. So it makes you very approachable. Interesting, I was in Atlanta a few months ago in a cab, and the disc jockey, the radio was on, the disc jockey was talking to a foreign correspondent that covers like the Middle East crisis, like all those countries that hate each other, Saudi Arabia and Iraq and all that. And the DJ said, how much tension is in that room when these guys go in there, you know? And the correspondent said, actually, every one of these guys is a master at humor, at using humor. They all know how to put each other at ease. It's more like a fraternity reunion than it is Middle East Summit, which might be why they're not getting anything done. They understand the power of humor at that level, how to use humor and to get what they want, or at least to make communications a little more accessible. Certainly it diffuses tensions. We're going to talk about using humor to diffuse tense situations. We'll talk about that because change brings on a lot of tension and stress, doesn't it? We talk about a couple ways to use humor to diffuse that. We used a lot of humor when my sister was going in the hospital to diffuse that tension. And by the way, I figured out the system in the emergency room. The person who was bleeding gets to the top of the list. Yeah, my sister's at the bottom because she wasn't bleeding at first. Oh yeah, 5 hours of that. I said, Debbie, I got to cut you. We'll never get out of here. So, I watched that show on Animal Planet, I Shouldn't Be Alive. Y'all see that show? Where people take exotic vacations to like faraway places that are very remote, and then, shocker, they almost die. It should be called I Shouldn't Have Done That. But they say sometimes they say they use humor to get through the sort of stressful situation that they're in. So it certainly diffuses tense situations. It also helps you kick off a tough topic, doesn't it? You know, you've got to sit down and talk about budgets or layoffs or something like that in a staff meeting or what have you, or the tough topics you deal with your clients. It helps you kick off a tough topic if you use a little bit of humor. I went into I had to do a comedy show for the staff of a cattle slaughterhouse because they were having 2 days of sexual harassment training, and they said, we want to kick it off. It's a very tense topic for us. We want to kick it off with some humor. I know, I'm like, sexual harassment training, how pretty are these cows? You kick it off with some humor, you can kind of get into the topic a little easier, right? It's also, it's a good way to give yourself a sort of a short-term mental win. You know, a lot of the books on change that talk about moving your organization through change talk about you got to give your group a short-term win along the way. Well, humor will give you sort of a short-term mental win. Sometimes you're just doing the humor for yourself, right? Yeah. And of course it's healthy. We're getting all sorts of statistics out there and all sorts of research going on how healthy humor is. But I'm going to just run by a couple of different reports on what's going on with the research on humor. But what does it feel like when you laugh? What does it feel like when you laugh? Feels good, yeah. Can you feel the tension going away? Can you feel the energy changing? Yeah? No? We don't laugh at community action. We're, no, you can feel it, right? I just think the proliferation that we had of humor over the years is just a real testament to how people are finally taking it seriously, that we really need it in our lives. I mean, I'm older than some of y'all, but I'm 50. When I was a kid, we had only like maybe 2 or 3 sitcoms, right? It's like I Love Lucy and Mary Tyler Moore and Dick Van Dyke. Then we got into comedy clubs, started in the 80s, right? People would pay money to sit in a chair and have you make them feel an emotion. Pretty cool, huh? And then we had all these sitcoms in the 90s, everything happened. Then we had Comedy Central, the all-comedy, 24/7 comedy station. We have a whole TV station devoted to an emotion. We don't have another TV station devoted to an emotion, do we? Well, Lifetime, the all-crying channel. But yeah, one of my clients said that humor is actually the only emotion you can experience which you cannot multitask. You know, like you could be crying, you could be typing out that letter to someone who broke up with you, you know, but you can't be laughing and doing something like that. I said, what about laughing and wetting your pants? She said, well, that's not really a cognitive skill, okay? You can still do that. So comedians are perfect for talking about using humor in change situations because we're in change situations all the time. Every single week I'm in front of a different group, a different city, a different venue, a different size audiences. So we're used to using humor in different change situations and figuring that out. In weird situations, we get put in some, this one's a great room setup. I mean, you guys are kind of in the back, but overall, good room setup, people can see me. Twice, I've been brought up at conventions, twice, after they read off the list of people in the association who died. Yeah, and then they brought me up. Let's have some humor now. Come on. Anyone think this is a bad idea, huh? One time they actually had a solemn candle lighting ceremony. They lit a candle for everybody who died in the association. Then they flipped on the lights and brought me out, huh? Yeah, I walked up there. I said, you know, I see we got a couple candles left. I'm thinking some of y'all weren't supposed to be here this week. Anyone get a funny look at registration? Bob, is that you? But what I did in that situation, I changed the energy. I changed the mood. I changed the energy by using humor. And what I did, I got the big elephant out on the table. I diffused the tension by getting the big elephant out on the table, what everyone's thinking. And that's what you can use humor for. When you're dealing with a tough subject and you got it, everyone's just had layoffs or budget cuts, you need to get the big elephant out on the table. If you're going to sit down and have a staff meeting and everyone's still thinking that we just had budget cuts, what does this mean to me? You better say something about it. Because otherwise people are going to be back there thinking about the budget cuts. I walked on stage, I thought, man, if I don't say something about this thing we just did, people are going to be back there at the service and it's not going to look good. I'm not going to get off to a good start. So what I did, I changed the humor, the attention, the energy in the room. I put myself in the other person's shoes and I said what their sarcastic voice is thinking. And that's where a lot of the humor is. And that's how you can kind of get the big elephant out on the table. Put yourself in the other person's shoes, say what their sarcastic voice is thinking. We all have a sarcastic voice in our head, don't we? Not just comedians, right? The first time you were ever disciplined by mom and dad, you had a comeback, didn't you? You just didn't say it because you wanted to live, right? Yeah, now is your chance to say it. Put yourself in their sarcastic. Kids are doing this all the time, right? Kids are always saying what's on people's minds, blurting it out. They don't have those filters. I went out to dinner with my brother and his wife and their 3 boys to a Mexican restaurant. And my 12-year-old nephew, Patrick, ordered the Fiesta platter, which was the size of Mexico. Okay, it's huge. the check came, and I grabbed the check, and my brother's trying to get the check, and we're doing that whole check tussle thing. After a couple minutes, Patrick blurts out, "Dad, let her have it. We don't know how much this thing cost." Now, sometimes you can't just blurt it out like my nephew, right? You can't just blurt out what's on everyone's mind. They sit down at a staff meeting, it's a little tense. You can't blurt it out. Comedians have a couple of different techniques we use to get the big elephant out, to get what's on everyone's mind. First, we'll do a quick survey. We'll walk out, "Hey, quick survey, how many people think blah, blah, blah." Changes the mood, changes the tension, and gets the elephant out. I just had to do it recently at a hospice fundraiser. I had to follow a nun, and she put a really bad energy out. It was a fundraiser, and she went up ahead of me, and she started telling people, shaking them down for more money. She said, "We're halfway through building the new hospice, and we are $5 million short." Yeah, and then she brought me up, you know? So there's a little bit of tension, so I'd use the survey method to kind of get that out there, because I know you can't make fun of a nun. I'm not Catholic or anything. I know you can't do that. But I went up there and I said, "Hey, Sister Mary just said that we are halfway through building the new hospice and we are $5 million short. Quick survey, how many people here think we should not tell that to the construction crew?"